Greetings, guys. This is Payman, your host of the Leaves with a Hot podcast. Today, I have a very, very, very special episode with two of my favorite guests so far. Over 200 people, amazing interviews and people I've had. I've had the incredible honor of having these two wonderful gentlemen multiple times. My good friend Randy, in basketball parlance, we've done game 3. We're going to be doing game 4 soon. And with my good friend Bryan, we've already done game 4 and we're going to be doing a game 5 soon. So again, I am incredibly honored to be connecting individually with both of you and now to having you both on the same platform. I've been looking forward to that. So listen, guys, listen, brothers, it's an honor having you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Payman.
Thank you, Payman. Glad to be here.
This is always a great place to be.
Pleasure's all mine. Just before going live, we were talking about something and I didn't want to miss anything. It's about Randy. You sent me a wonderful gift, which is your book. I don't know if you can show it here, if you can see it correctly. It's your life. And from what you were telling us, it's this is basically what you were journaling when you were there, when you were in prison. So tell us more about that. Let's start from this.
I can't really, I didn't have a plan going in other than just keep my eyes wide open and my mouth shut and go from there. That was my only goal. But it hit me early on that one of the things that scared me, honestly, is that I had this, I don't know, it was just probably some kind of a premonition I had. It had scared the crap out of me about all of these relationships I had that I had built up for almost 50 years. And then, you're going to go on this nice vacation out in the North Carolina woods for 2 years, right? And will everybody forget about me? And will everybody just, and I made a conscious effort to stay in touch with people. I can't explain why. I just had this unbelievable urge, starting with my family and then on down through, professional acquaintances I had, really, really close friends, you name it. And my pastor, David Staff, was an unbelievable friend. He was the senior pastor and also a dear friend of mine, and helped me through some tough stuff going through the death of our second daughter and everything that went after that. And David said, I'll tell you what, he said, I'm going to make a commitment to you. He said, I'm going to write you every day that you're in prison. Wow. And when he said it, I was like, did he say that just to make me feel better? He certainly isn't going to write me every single day. Sure enough. Once the mail started trickling in, he wrote me every day for 635 days.
Wow. Phenomenal.
Yeah, you could count on it. And it could be a handwritten note with a little article, or it could be it could be a copy of his sermon, whatever. So I'm answering your question by, I wanted to stay connected to the world. I didn't want to disappear into this other world. Now, it's kind of crazy that you're a short timer if you're in 2 years. It felt like a lot longer than 2 years to me. But,
sure.
It scared me to my core and it made me realize how important relationships were in my life. Then following that was really a feeling like I've got to pour out everything I've got inside me because I've got a lot to say. And that's what started my journaling. And that continued on and on and on. And I got to where I had written so much, I figured I better get it typed to get it condensed. So I borrowed a typewriter about every 4th day or so and got caught up to borrow it, and you had to buy the ribbon for it and everything. And I went through, I don't know how many, 8, 9, 10 ribbons, those old Beautiful. Smith Corona black. Okay. And man, I wrote and I typed and I wrote and I typed and I wrote and I typed until, boy, and Bryan was talking about it too, about how that just, it became a place where you could pour things out that you weren't even aware of almost, they
Wow.
just came rolling out. And so I wanted to be busy. I wanted to stay connected to people, and I wanted to write, and I wanted to purge all this stuff from me. And I ended up walking 2,200 miles in the time I was there, because I walked
Wow.
a minimum of 6 miles every day. And that was part of my regimen. And that was,
Wow.
I needed that badly. And the exercise is awesome, but just to free your head up from where you were and what was going on and feel the sunshine was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. That's
So,
awesome. Thank you, Randy. We'll dive deeper into that in a moment. But something I should have done from the start is let's introduce each of you one by one. So tell us a little bit about each of you. So Bryan, tell us a little bit about you before we dive deep into today's conversation, because I have so many questions, and most importantly,
Sure.
more questions will kind of pop up. So tell us about you, Bryan.
Yeah, there's a lot that's reflecting about what Randy went through. Currently, I'm a business owner. I'm a business growth specialist. I help businesses to be able to grow their business online beyond what they can do themselves. And that's what I do vocationally. That is my business that's grown over the few years. But more important to this framework is who I was and am since 2016. And we all make choices in life. I made a choice to follow somebody else's dream, somebody else's vision. I even chose to fight hard for that. And it all came crashing down when everything was stripped away from me in 2016. Everything. And the reset button was hit on my life, emotionally, physically. And I was in the environment of incarceration, not for a long time, for 30 days. But for somebody to go from, I know the people around me, I'm safe, I've created this structure around me, and then you're placed in that environment, not of your own choosing, out of injustice, out of your constitutional rights being taken from you. That does something to a man at his core, and there's nobody there to save you except yourself and the belief in the power that you believe, and mine was gone. And as I realized my business came from that, my expression came from that, I just didn't survive it, but I grew beyond that. I realized that that was a cool opportunity for me to heal from that and to be able to help others. And so that's what's really who I am here today, here meeting you and meeting Randy, that opportunity to what happened and how I didn't just survive it, but how I actually chose to become the highest version of Bryan that I can be from that. That was a mental choice between my ears that I made, that maybe it can be a pathway for others. And it's become a new conviction in my life.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. There's so much we can talk, and you've been gracious enough to open up, and I feel honored that you chose my podcast to open up to the world and share your story. Powerful story. And wow, there's so much more. So Randy, tell us a little bit about you, and so that people that don't know you get to know about you and your story in a nutshell. Because of course, me and you, we had again 3 wonderful long episodes. But for people that haven't heard about you, just in a short summary, give us a short summary of who you are.
Well, I grew up as a son of a sports writer and a wonderful mom and a great family. Had a wonderful childhood. My dad was a sports writer, and so I grew up in gyms. Imagine that.
Beautiful.
And I knew at about age 8 that basketball was in my future. I didn't know you could actually make a living coaching basketball and hanging out in the gym. When I found that out, it's like I found the mother lode. I mean, it's like, This is it. I can't believe it. And so basketball became my passion, became my path. I set a goal to play as long as I could, because I love the game so much, and then thought coaching was a natural. And so I coached for 5 years in high school, and I coached 20 years in college at the highest level in Division I. We reached the pinnacle, didn't get to the Final Four, but got as close as you can get. And And so I was at the top of my profession, but I was also making some choices at the same time that were going to bring me down. And that's why I served, eventually served time in prison. So that ended the coaching part of my career. And I still love it when people coach. It's just an awesome reminder of that time, but it's a different time now. And so post incarceration was a really tough time. Taking us to the present, over the course of about 2 years now, I have made a decision to reinvent myself and really ask the question, when you get in your 50s and 60s, it begs the question, what really am I here for? What am I going to leave for other people? Is this all about me? Well, there's no more scoreboards and there's no more games to win or lose. So it certainly can't be about me. And so that's why I've transferred into a role of being an influencer and a speaker and an author and a coach, a different kind of coaching people. And I want to take what I know to be true, like Bryan has through decisions he's made, and commit that to other people. Okay, we both carry around a gift that needs to be shared with people. If not, shame on me.
Absolutely.
And I won't let that happen. And so everything I do is, I just want to be a seed planter. I want to plant as many seeds as I can while I'm still on this earth. And there's a lot of seeds to plant.
Beautiful.
So,
absolutely.
yes.
No, you're right. And Randy, and this is something that I talk all day long on my podcast. We all go through our fair share of dark times, tragedies, crap times, whatever you want to call it. But they are meant for us to happen so that we can grow, become the person we're meant to be. Sure, at the time they hurt a lot. And then those events become our story. Then that story becomes our gift. And that gift becomes ultimately our responsibility. Just like you put it perfectly. If I were to keep it just for myself, that would be not only shameful, but also a monumental waste of the gift of what life is all about. To share, to learn, to grow, and share that knowledge with others, so together we can all rise. So there's so many places we can take this to start, but
I want to jump into
yes, please.
a point that Randy made that was really, really important. When we're in that environment, you begin to doubt your own reality.
Yes.
Because here you have people that know you. Hi, Bryan. It's good to meet you, Bryan. You know me as an individual. But in that environment, you're in an environment of darkness. And so you begin to doubt your own reality of who you are, because you begin to say, well, I guess I'm going to adapt as human beings do when we're going to adapt to that. But Randy had somebody who was willing to make the commitment of every day writing to them. And that's not easy. And I had the similar thing where I knew I needed something to hold on to. I needed to know that somebody knew me. And so I told my mom at that time, I said, I need to ask you something. Write me every day. Please make that commitment and write me every day. You don't understand right now why that's so important to me.
Right.
And it's an anchor. And he had somebody in his life that made that commitment. I had somebody that made that commitment every day to remind us through writing of who Randy is, of who Bryan Tarr is. And that gift, I didn't remember how important that gift is. And I think for me, and it sounds like for Randy too, that gift now transferred into us, that every day that we're breathing, we are finding people to remind them of who they are and how important that they are. I think that was a beautiful gift that he and I received while we were in there. And that's now part of who we are, because I can imagine if Randy and I were heading to a coffee shop, I would find somebody to connect with to remind them that they're important. Randy would remind them somebody to connect with to tell them that they're important. And now it's become like the mission of our lives.
Sure.
Beautiful. At what point did you guys realize and understood, hey, this is too big for me just to hold on to it and keep it and hide it hidden beneath my inside of myself? What point did you realize, hey, I need to share that with the world? Let's start with you, Randy.
For me, it has been fairly recently, to be honest with you. I mean, I turned into a self-employed guy because I got so frustrated with people not willing to be associated with me, if you like. And so I did, I worked for friends and things. And finally I said, you know what? There's a really good guy I know, and I bet he'll hire me. And it was me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So I thought, hey, that's great, man. Okay, I get a job tomorrow,
The best boss in the world,
So I created, I created a lot of basketball projects, and I created a lot of projects outside basketball. But as time went, my wife and I divorced 7 years ago. And that was really hard for me. We'd been married 32, loss of our two daughters, and an awful lot of tragedy and an awful lot of adversity, and a lot of history and a lot of memories, both good and not so good. And that really rocked me for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to brush the dust off and say, all right, so we're talking, I'm saying 2 years ago, really. It's been that recent, to where I just put my foot down one day. I was being busy during the day, but I wasn't being productive, and I wasn't helping anyone necessarily. Now, I had a program that helped over 130 young coaches to be college coaches. Okay. But that's not the kind of help I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind that Bryan was talking about in the coffee shop. Just a nice word to somebody is going to brighten their day. And it may just, you never know. I mean, they may be suicidal. I mean, we just don't know. We never know, right? We know. And so I just put my foot down all these months ago, the last couple of years. And then probably about 8 months ago, got really clear about what I wanted to do, and then begin to align myself with a guy like yourself, who I met in the serving circle. Never would have met you probably out there in this big old world of ours without the serving circle. And that really served as a new home for me. And the people that I've met in that group, and the people that they know that they've introduced me to, which is how I got to know Bryan. Okay, think about this. It's really transferred me into a whole new world of people who are heart-centered, and I didn't know this existed. And so it's been once I put my foot down, I think that was my invitation to the universe to say, and for God to say, okay, you got my attention finally, because I'm pretty hard-headed at times. You got my attention. Okay, lead me. And why I responded to an email and went to that very first serving circle, I don't really know. I really don't know why.
Who invited you to the serving circle?
Well, Corey Poirier, who is a writer and a speaker and a lot of different things. He's been a wonderful guy in my speaking and writing career. He sent out an email to everybody that he works with that have been in his programs through the years. And I saw it and I read through it and I thought, well, okay, I don't know what made me answer the call, but that's part of these journeys that we can go back and point to certain things and say, what made me log in that first time to a group of people from all over the world, of which I knew none of them, none.
Absolutely.
And I fell in love with that group, and it's changed the way I think. It's really changed everything that I want to do from here until I leave this earth.
Beautiful.
Very profound.
Beautiful. How about you, Bryan?
I'll blame it on Randy.
Absolutely.
It's Randy's fault. He's really reminding me of, at first, I wanted to survive. I wanted to just survive and make sure that this was going to be okay and that economically I could survive. But I couldn't get past the hurt and the pain. And I met a gentleman that talked about his tragedy and talked about what he went through. And I said, man, I really relate to you. You went through a darkness And so did I, but nobody knows about it. How do I get past that? He says, start talking about it. I'm like, no, you don't understand. You want me to start talking about it to everybody. He said, if you want to heal, I'm not telling you what to do, but if you want to heal, you need to start talking about it. Okay. So I started sharing with it. And the more I shared what I went through, the more I began to heal. Now, again, I'm beginning to heal. This is taking care of Bryan. And then as my business grew and as I grew my more and more connections, there was some kind of magic that I do. I didn't understand what that was. Connection, people, seeing what's more possible. The business started to grow. The connections I would made started to grow. And again, I'm still surviving and I'm just making ends meet. There was no greater mission. I didn't know what my greater mission was. I was trying to figure it out. Somebody says, don't worry, you'll figure it out. But then all of a sudden that I began to meet people that were in the space of making a difference to other people. They started to come alongside of me, people with missions, people with higher intentions. And I didn't know it at that time, but they were coming beside me to move me forward. So it's almost like you're in a crowd and they're pushing you forward. And then I knew there was something greater in the last year than what I was doing. I didn't know what that was. So I was open to hearing advice about it. So a friend of mine, Rochelle, says, it's time for you to talk about what you're going through. You should talk to Payman. I really trust this guy. Okay. I built my life off of people that I trust. And we get in a conversation.
1 second, Bryan.
Then,
Rachel,
yeah.
do you know her in real life or do you know her only online?
Oh, no. We've been through a lot of things together,
okay.
a lot of
Okay.
things. So
She's
it's Rochelle
amazing
Badler.
lady. Yes.
She's amazing. Yeah, but we've been through a lot of stuff together.
Okay.
And we formed a really, really good friendship. And she says, I think you need to be on a podcast. And I'm like, okay, I guess. She said, no, I really trust this guy. He's got a great way of interviewing people. Now, it is, and I'm discovering people in my life that are bringing this out, that are helping me see what I don't see. And I need more of those in my life.
We all need that.
So I'm talking with Payman and I'm talking about it. And for some reason, I trust you. And I feel safe to talk about this. And I'm starting to talk about details about what I went through that I never told anybody. And you're taking me deeper and I'm getting emotional. And I just completely let go and let you guide me. And I thought it was very healing. And I could feel myself connecting with this deeper story like I never have. And then you said, this is something that other people need to hear. And my brain said, no, not me. This is a story that needs to be told. This is a mission. This other people need this.
I knew it from
disbelief.
I knew it from our very first conversation. Listen, Bryan, not only I want you to be on my podcast, but I want you to start writing a book, getting your own podcast, because you have one of the most powerful stories out there. I knew it right away.
And like I'm hearing from Randy, and then in the brain doesn't click. It just doesn't click for the brain. So I told a friend of mine that I trust, and we've been talking about men's journey. And I happen to be part of a men's group every Monday. So pieces are getting put together. I'm part of a men's group consistently, and I built trusted relationships. I have a trusted relationship with a good friend of mine, several, and he and I talk about the real stuff. Then I hear from Payman that I'm supposed to have a story. And so I go to my good friend and I said, hey, I was just on this podcast. You won't believe what this guy told me. He says that my story should be told to other men. Can you believe that? And he asked me some questions. He said, well, tell me more about what he talked about. Sure. So I shared the podcast and he's writing on a whiteboard. I don't know what he's writing. And he's like, huh? Now, tell me about your dad. Okay, he died when you were 3. Okay, you went through this. Okay, and you're a business growth specialist now. Yeah, okay. I'm like, I don't get this. And he says, here you go. Who you've been and what you went through brought you to today because you learned how to rebuild, and you're a master at rebuilding, Bryan.
Bingo.
And who are you not to share this with other people? And in the face of such truth, you can't deny it. And all of a sudden, there's a men's breakthrough that I'm a part of, and the other men are coming through, and there's a men's group, and then connected with Randy and connected with Payman. And these people are coming into my life because I chose to surrender
Mhm.
and believe that there's something inside of me that was given to me. I've been taught the strength and the tools that I need to share it. And all I need to do is to show up, speak up, and stay in the room with this. And the rest is going to take care of itself.
Wow.
And that's when I knew I don't have to do it alone. Like Randy said, it's not up to me to figure out the how. Payman and I were talking about it. The how is like a hot stove. Don't touch it. But if you want to, go ahead.
That's none of your business. That's a universe's business,
Yeah, that was hard for me to it's still a little challenging to surrender that. But that's when something, and like I'm witnessing with Randy, something is coming out from who he is that's going to touch a lot of people, and he's going to be fully supported in that. And the next step is going to be figured out. And we just need to constantly surrender to it. That's when I discovered, and that's when I learned that there's something bigger and greater that I'm the holder of, and that I get to share it. And when I share it, it's not going to deplete it. It's just going to keep going. And so here we are today.
Yes, absolutely. And your story, similar to Randy's story, is one story that it's not just that it deserves, but it has to be shared, because this is a very powerful story that is filled with golden pieces of wisdom, of nuggets and all that. That even if someone that
And I
doesn't,
think I was going to say real quick, Randy was hitting on it. he mentioned it briefly. There are too many men in this world that didn't have a good father figure. They missed something growing up. Because of that, they made really poor choices and are still making them. We don't have the environment that men need to be able to be full men in this life. And they just need to see somebody brave enough and bold enough to stand up against the darkness and to tell them, you're going to be okay. You're loved. And you can, how did you put it, Randy? You can raise the bar on who you are in your life, and you'll be supported.
and that you matter, your voice matters, and your message is important, no matter how insignificant you might feel. Because just like you mentioned, and I've seen that countless times on my podcast, people that have tremendous skills or tremendous stories, they don't value them because for them it's nothing special. But they need an objective pair of eyes to say, hey, this is your zone of genius. This is a powerful story. I've had that happen to me many times. And now I see it all day long, every day on my guest, because we don't see, sometimes we don't see what's right in front of us.
Mm-hmm. That's the power of other people. And that's the power of collaboration. There's a visual that hit me while Bryan was talking. If you can imagine, and we all go through this to some degree, if you can imagine walking down like in a city, just that visual of a mob of people all walking in the same direction. And you can walk within a crowd if you're going the same direction at the same speed and not really touch anybody. You're just in that flow. But if you stop and start to go back upstream, okay, you catch all kinds of resistance and you get knocked around, you're going the wrong way. And until I realized that I needed to go with the flow, I needed to go in a direction that was more freed up. It didn't have all the conflict going on. And it opened myself up to, and the universe saying, maybe there is a gift out there. But what's amazing about this picture is at any given time, because I've learned a lot about, being a college coach, I thought I knew what ego was, but I've learned a lot about, in doing inner work that I've done with some great people. I've learned about what ego, is really detailed. And at any given time in our path, we can let ego seep its way back in, and we start fighting against the current again. And it's kind of a because we never reach a finish line, right? We never do. We are always working. And sometimes it's 2 steps back, 1 step ahead. But, I'm always reminding myself of who I'm doing this for. Am I doing it for me, or am I doing it for other people? And I believe, if I believe anything, I believe what Coach Walsh said with the 49ers. He had a book, and it said the scorebook, or excuse me, it said the score did what they were supposed to do, then things would work out on the scoreboard.
Can you back that up a little bit, Randy? Because we
Yes.
just lost you for a little bit.
Yes.
So Bill
saw
Walsh
that.
said in his book.
No
I
worries.
saw that. So Coach Walsh said that if we do what we're supposed to do as coaches, as trainers, as players, as front office people, okay, the result will manifest itself in winning. The score takes care of itself. He used to say that. That was like his primary, and he wrote a book by that title. And it's so true about us in our life, because, even, we've both been incarcerated. We come out, we reinvent, off we go. And at any point, I have to be reminded that, am I allowing myself to go back into the guy I used to be, in a lot of different ways, and, through the ego or whatever the case may be. No, I need to stay open to whatever God's got in my way, whatever he's got planned for me, and go with that flow that I envision people walking down the street in New York City, all in concert, and it's crazy that all those people could walk like that without that being a tug of war or something. But that visual came to me while you were talking, and it's so,
wow.
Well, we just have to be open. We really have to be open.
I'm getting pumped because
Good.
I'm hearing that our journeys and where we're going and where life's taking us, but I'm realizing there's going to be a journey that we're on that you and I are going to be sharing. Case in point, listening to where the crowd is going, where we're inspired, listening to where life is leading you. I could make my coffee one morning, but I thought, there's a coffee shop down the road and I really like it. I like the people that are around there. So I take my dog and we go down to the coffee shop and I get my favorite coffee, and we're sitting there and a guy walks up and there's 2 tables inside and he wants to use the other one. He says, "Excuse me, can I use this table?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." But he's got to move in around me. So he's just, "Excuse me, pardon me." So his breakfast is delivered. He's looking at my dog. We start chatting about how we get more unconditional love from the dog than we do the women in our lives.
Oh, yes.
we're laughing about this and I'm like, I'm really carrying on the conversation. And I said, I like our conversation because it's why I'm in a men's meeting and it's why I have more men in my life. It's just who I am. And he said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, I believe that men need more leadership." Now he's asking questions. Now we're raising the level of the conversation. And I'm just sharing with him, but he hears something different. And now we have a different conversation. And I said, like the Friday meeting that I go to every Friday at Toastmasters down the road, great group of guys, bunch of smart asses. I love these guys. He says, "Wait, the 1808? I'm like, "Yeah." "With so-and-so and so-and-so?" "Yes. I used to go to that years ago. I don't know why I haven't gone again." And he's like, "You know what? Can I have your number, please? I want to stay in contact with you." So there, from just, getting a feeling of where I wanted to go, following the conversation, like Randy was saying, there was a gentleman that I met that I'm supposed to meet for, I don't know why, but it will reveal itself. That was like a real life example of like what Randy was talking about just 3 days ago. And if I stay open, like Randy's talking about,
you didn't have to talk to him. You made a choice. Nope. Because you just could have sat down like we do in an airplane a lot of times, just sit there and just, hunker down, put your headphones on, but you didn't. You were open, so you were walking with his flow.
You're right, Randy, because he said
you weren't bucking the you weren't that
No.
salmon going upstream,
Yeah.
running into everything,
like
and you let it
micro,
happen.
I sat down and he said, "Is this table available?" I could have said yes or no.
Correct. Yeah.
And he sat down and he said, "Oh, it's a cute dog." And I could have said, "Thanks," and closed it off.
Sure.
But I shared a little more. Then he shared a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And then I commented. And we were playing a heart game, a soul game. I didn't realize it. And you're right, Randy. I kept choosing.
Yeah.
Did you feel that?
No question.
Did you feel that you were making those decisions consciously, or almost like you were led by your higher self, by the
This brings
universe,
back
call
to
it to, hey, this is just almost as if it was being channeled through you by your higher self. Hey, this meeting is no coincidence. It was meant to happen.
actually leads back to your original question. When did we realize that we had a message that was stronger, needed to be shared with the world? Because I believe that now, because I surrendered to that, I just keep talking. Because I think, and Randy, as you were mentioning, in this environment, in my mind, why am I here? Why am I here right now? We're going to talk about dogs. Okay. Why am I here right now? He's talking about men. Okay. Why am I here right now? Yeah. And I kept following it until he said, "I'm sorry, I got to go, but I want to stay in contact with you." That, I think, like you were saying, Randy, him pulling out his phone going, "Can you please enter your phone number here?" was evidence that I stayed open and I surrendered.
Absolutely. And that's the difference. That's what we've become. What absence of the ego does, it instantly makes us curious about other people.
Oh, yes.
That has been something that has been constant for me since in this last couple month journey of mine. I mean, I've been, the idea of these one-on-ones, you meet somebody in some of these big group rooms, and people like to connect, and you connect, and next thing you know, I'm talking to a moonologist. I mean, I no more would have thought about anything about the moon when I was coaching. All I was worried about is me and scoring enough points. Now I'm curious about it, and I'm curious about chakras, and I'm curious about essential oils and these things, that there's a whole world of stuff that I didn't even have time to slow down and listen to. And now I am. And what's happening is, not only are these things like the topics I mentioned, but it's the people attached to them that have become part of my life. That's the magic. And that's why we're here doing this.
Yes.
I just want to add one thing to that you both guys mentioned is very powerful, is the removing the ego. I'm just going to quote one quote from a movie I watched not long ago, a phenomenal movie called The Green Book. I don't know if you heard of it, but the quote is this: "The world is full of lonely people afraid to make the first move." Because everybody's waiting. Okay, I don't want to lose. I don't want to be the first person to make the move. Let them do. I'm big or whatever. And that's going to take you nowhere. Instead, release your ego and be the bigger person. Make the first move, because that other person is just dying for you to make that first move. And that applies to anything, and romance and business and friendship, or just even talking to someone you just want to talk.
We live in a world of fear and shame.
Yes.
And everybody's like, "I wish somebody would just ask me how I'm doing."
Right.
Yes.
You reminded me, Randy, that this guy, Miguel, that I met, Brian, this was sent yesterday. I saw this quote today and I thought you might like it. "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you."
Wow.
Yeah.
A deep sentiment from a gentleman that I met 3 days ago, by staying open, like Randy said, and avoiding the ego.
Yeah.
This is just evidence. What Randy's experience is evidence that he and I are guided on a greater path that we don't have to figure out. And it's just getting started.
Oh, yes.
Question. No doubt about it. That's awesome.
So the question I have for you guys now is, what is next for both of you to take your story to the next level, to really take it to the masses?
There's an interesting question. And I honestly don't have an answer for that. I would say that it's being formed and fashioned as we speak. I don't think it's been mandated yet. I keep literally, I think what we do, I know I do, we throw a lot of things against the wall. Entrepreneurs are great for doing that. And we throw things against a wall, and if it works, or there's a place for it, we incorporate it. If not, we move on. And I'm going through some big decisions myself right now as we speak about where I'm headed, so I can't even answer your question. All I can do, though, and I'll say this because I know this to be true, is I need to get out of my own way. I need to get out of the way,
Ego.
okay, and let these things happen. They will not happen being guided by me. They will happen as they'll be greater and greater the more I am not attached to them, trying to drive them down the street. I know that for sure. So
Beautiful.
I have great faith that there is something great for all three of us, and moving forward. I just don't know what that is.
Beautiful. How about you, Bryan?
I think what's next for me is every day realizing how I'm getting in the way.
Yes.
I'm learning to master my time. I'm going to need to do more with less. I'm going to need to create boundaries. I'm going to need to make priorities. So I'm in a practice right now of really mastering my time. I've got a day journal that I'm tracking what I'm doing. So that's what's next for me, is mastering my time and where I spend my energy, so that I'm so much more available. Payman lit up a spark when we had a conversation the other day that we should hold a summit of men who have gone from purgatory to impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I freaked out about the how, but he said, don't worry about it. So what's next for me is just to choose it. We chose a date. We're going to invite some people, and we're going to have some great conversations. And I get to let that just be its own self.
What's the date again?
What day did we choose? July
24th, I believe, 23rd, 24th.
Yeah, I think so. And we got it in a document. I allowed Payman to be able to create the document for me. That was letting go of a lot of things.
Yes.
I think it was in July that we're going to have that summit of from purgatory to impact. Many examples of hell. And like you're saying, Randy, that just letting the how go. So I'm going to show up greatly for that.
Yeah.
I'm showing up greatly every week at my Toastmasters meeting with these guys, because I don't know what's going to become about of that. The men's group that I'm a part of, I said something one day that men are missing the structure in their daily lives, so that they know how to create more. How you wake up, how you go to sleep. Are you journaling? Are you reflecting? Are you spending time with your divine source?
Right.
Some of these typical things that I did when I was discipling, I said more men, if they knew about that, would have a better chance in life. And a guy says, so why don't you lead it? What? Well, I can't do it alone. And my friend Kevin goes, I'll do it with you. So we're going to talk this weekend about putting that together. And my inspiration is like AA propagated over the years because it was such a simple structure that everybody could do.
Sure. It did.
What if we could do this?
Right.
And then that's what's next for me. And then following leadership, like staying in touch with Randy and being there to tell him I believe in him, to tell him I understand, and maybe I've got some ideas and reflections that are going to help him.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine is building the Men's Breakthrough Challenge, and he's scared right now, and he has imposter syndrome about that he's the person to show up. So my opportunity is just to be there for him and encourage him.
Right.
So in all of these ways, if I take a breath, it might seem overwhelming, but all I need to do is just show up. That's what's next for me.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
No
Show up and Share your story far and wide. Go on these Facebook groups. Get on other people's podcasts. But speaking of podcasts,
Finish
how
the
that
book. Finish
yes,
the book.
yes. Speaking of podcasts, Randy, you're an alumni, and Bryan, you're soon to be alumni. Make use of that little thing. Seriously, that's why I push
Yes.
you guys to do this, not just
Yes.
to add another thing on your resume, but to actually
Yep.
do it because this is powerful.
Absolutely.
Start the
Absolutely.
podcast.
And you know, Randy, for you, another person that would be phenomenal to have on your podcast. You mentioned that person that was writing you every single day when you were in jail. That would be one of the
Yes.
first people, along with that lady, that doctor that I forgot her name,
Right.
but God bless
Yeah.
her and her soul. You need to have
Dr.
her
Frazier.
and
Yeah.
that exactly, and that person that wrote you every day, even you, Bryan. I'm not kidding. Invite your mother on your podcast because she was the one, the threat holding you back alive when you were in jail. She was the one writing to you. Have her on your podcast to share how that was going through from her perspective, having her son in jail and you having to write it. Seriously, when I'm
Wow.
talking right now, I'm getting goosebumps because I'm not saying that this is being almost channeled through me.
Okay. Her love of her life died. She had 2 sons.
Wow.
One son had a mental illness, and we don't know if he's still alive.
Wow.
She's got the one son, and now this one son is his mind is being shut down. It looks like he's not going to survive. And what did she go through? What was she experiencing? And why did she consistently write me every day?
Yes.
And what was she feeling the day that I was released?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Bryan, this is a.
I'm going to talk to her today. I'm going
You
to
know
talk to her
what?
today.
You know why your podcast is going to be tremendously impactful is because you're going to be sharing a bunch of stories straight from the heart. This is what people want to hear. They don't want to hear corporate, perfect, crappy, or scripted stories. They want to hear heart to heart, people's real life stories, powerful stories.
Thank you.
Same for both of you. Seriously, you guys are sitting on
Thank
a
you.
diamond mine, not a gold mine, but diamond mine.
What a beautiful gift for Mother's Day. Hey,
Yes,
Mom, I'm going to
yes,
help
yes.
you tell your story.
Yes. What do you mean?
Turning a mess into a message.
Oh, beautiful. I'm going to write this down.
Hey,
That's
I love you
poetic.
more, Randy. I love you more.
Turning the mess into a message.
Starring Bobby Joe Burchard and Bryan Tarr.
Yes. And you, Bryan, you said something else the other day. From Purgatory
to Impact.
To Impact. Hey, these can be beautiful branding.
I was meditating. That's what we're going to name the summit that we're going to have in July. Because I was asking myself, while there was incarceration, but not a lot of people were incarcerated, but they went through hell, but they didn't just survive hell. They went beyond that. They survived. They rebounded. They made an impact. They made an wait. Purgatory, and then to Impact. Yeah. How many men can we say that I was in purgatory and I didn't just survive? I chose to make an impact, and why?
You know, another thing that goes along with that is I know this to be true. If you really get down and talk to people, they will describe their life, and they might as well be in prison because they're in their own prison. And it is amazing because it's one thing that you and I have in common, and we know what that experience was like. But I really believe, as tough as a situation, an experience as that was, I have to believe it's worse in the world with all your freedom when
absolutely
it's pure. You've put yourself in prison and you're stuck there and you don't know how to get out.
Because when you're in jail, you know who's the, so to speak, who's the what you have to do, and you know who's the enemy. But when you're free yet in the jail inside of your own, you have no enemy. The enemy is within. You can't pinpoint where is the enemy, where is the issue. That's even worse.
The worst enemy.
Yes.
It's the worst enemy.
And I think if I was honest, I would say that I was in purgatory before I was incarcerated.
Yes.
I was in the worst kind of jail, the worst kind of incarceration. But life said, apparently you don't get it. Right. So we're going to make it real visual for you because we've got something. But
that's
you were
powerful.
right. You're right. You're right, Randy. We were in and we couldn't even see it. and
No.
nobody could tell us.
No. A world within a world, I call it.
Yeah. Wow.
So
I'd
Payman,
hug you, Randy, if I
have got
could.
to-
I'd hug you.
Group hugs.
Payman,
This is amazing.
I've got another appointment in 3 minutes.
Sure.
I hate to have
Absolutely.
to jump because
This
we
is
got
beautiful. Thank you.
Now,
Mm.
I'll tell you what I got yet today, and I don't know if you guys have any time today yet.
I will
But
be living. Today is my nephew's birthday, so we're gonna be going at 3 o'clock to my brother's house.
Okay.
So we'll be spending the night and the afternoon with the kids.
Okay, good. So we're set. So I got a 1 o'clock and then a 2 o'clock and a 4 o'clock. So, but let's pick this up kind of ASAP, right? I mean, I'm available like tomorrow. I'm available.
Tomorrow will be difficult. I have some errands to do, but the best time nowadays for me is on the weekends. Let's do that
Okay.
maybe next Saturday.
Possibly. Okay.
You guys have my Calendly. Look it up
Yep.
and let's find a time that works for all of us. And because this can be an ongoing. We could even start a show out with 3 of us.
Yeah.
Just thinking out loud.
Wow. Okay.
Make it a weekly show. Once instead of just the 3 of us talking, let's live stream it on Facebook and whatnot, and hit the record button and make it a podcast.
Let's take action. I'm mentally letting go of the how right now. Let's take action.
Let's
Let
find
go
a
of the how.
name. I love the 2 things that actually you both gave a wonderful suggestion. Bryan, from Purgatory to Impact, and Randy, turning the mess into a message. Turning the mess into a message podcast.
That's it.
Yeah.
Done.
That's it.
Messes are good. Okay.
Messes are what people hide
If we're being
from.
honest, it's we're in the middle of a mess. Life's right. It's a mess.
Yes.
So, and there's a lot of great messages that come out of messes. I got to roll. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Cheers.
See ya.
Thank
Ciao.
you.